My name is Jackie Dixon. Today is December 12, 2013, and I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee to interview Creed Daniel, an attorney from Rutledge, Tennessee. This interview is taking place as part of the Legal History Project of the Tennessee Bar Foundation. Creed, we need to know your full name.
Creed Allen Daniel.
And when were you born?
I was born in 35, November 22nd.
And were you born in Rutledge, Tennessee?
Born in Rutledge, and Dr. Bryan delivered me, I understand, in the house.
Okay. Dr. Bryan delivered my mother in Rutledge, Tennessee.
He delivered what?
He did. We all know Dr. Bryan.
Yeah, okay.
Who were your parents? Who was your mother?
My mother was Valma May Farr, and she was from Rutledge, and my dad, and of course from Rutledge also.
Okay, what was your dad's name?
Was William Isaac Allen Daniel. It just went by W.I.
Okay. And where is Rutledge, Tennessee located?
It's 30 miles from Morristown, 30 miles from Dandridge, 30 miles from Knoxville, 30 miles from Maynardville, and 30 miles from Tazewell. So well, it's between them all.
I did not know that. It's on Highway 11W, isn't it?
It's on 11W.
And it's the county seat of Granger County.
That's correct.
Which is famous for what?
The Granger County tomatoes.
That's right. Now, your mother didn't have a career other than as a homemaker, right?
She was a housewife homemaker.
Okay. And what did your dad do?
Dad had a lot of positions, and Dad was an attorney. He was county court clerk for 24 years and was clerk when the old courthouse burned. And he was a State Farm agent, one of the first State Farm agents in the state of Tennessee. And he was in politics and farmer, and was active in the Granger County Baptist associations.
When your dad lived a long life, when did he die?
He died in I took down all these notes. If you don't care, can I look at them?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay.
It's hard to remember all these dates sometimes.
Well, Dad, he passed away in 1976.
And when was he born?
He was born in 1903.
Okay. And lived his whole life in Granger County?
Whole life in Granger County.
Now, how about your mom? When was she born?
My mom was born in 1907 and passed away in 1998.
Okay. Some people may not know what the county court was. We don't really have county court anymore. You said your father was the county court clerk. What was that?
Well, now we still have a county court clerk.
Okay.
And that's what Dad was then. He for 24 years, and then he later was county judge.
Okay, it's the county judge we don't typically have anymore.
Right, it's the mayor now.
Okay, so what did he do as a county judge?
County judge just over the county and presided at the county court meetings and just the standard business of the county. Was
the county court kind of like a commission or council?
Yes, it's elected, of course, okay, from the different districts in the county. And you still have a county court which okay, sets the rules, tax rates, handles all of those items.
Okay, but it's not a court where people are found innocent or guilty.
No,
okay,
but Dad was also, and with the being a county judge at that time, it had juvenile jurisdiction.
Okay, I did not realize that. How long was he in that position?
He was in there about, I believe it's 6 years, what have you. Then he became disabled, and then I was appointed special judge special county judge of Granger County by Governor Winfield Dunn.
How long did you do that?
About 2 years, because it wasn't my cup of tea, so to speak. Because I didn't have a secretary, and just did the best I could do with it.
Do you recall about when you were serving as the county judge?
It was about, well, let me see here. When I found out that you desired to interview me, I got some papers together and what have you, and it was in, I think, 58.
Okay. Let's back up a little bit and talk a little bit more about your childhood. You grew up in Rutledge.
I did.
Okay, and I'm assuming you went to Rutledge Elementary School and Rutledge High School.
I did.
There weren't any other choices back then, were there?
No, there was not.
Okay. How did you do in high school?
I did okay. Played basketball, and we had a good team, and I just spent a typical high school person at that time. I'll never forget, I'll throw this in, the first day in school was going, and Mom had dressed me up, my little outfit, and I was going to ride the school bus. And you know, you being grown up right pretty close to me, 11W, I was having to cross 11W to get on the other side. So I got in the middle of the road, and I got scared to go either way. I froze close to the white line. This car come along and said, "Come on, let's go up here and see your dad and Mom." And we went up there, and he told Dad that if he didn't keep me out of the middle of the road, I was going to get killed. And Dad then said, "Mom, well, go on across when you start across the road. There's nothing coming."
So did you learn to cross the road
I
after
learned
that?
to cross the road, the old road. And, you know.
Was there a lot of heavy traffic on that road at that time?
Not that much.
How many people lived in Rutledge when you were growing up?
I think it's around 12,000. I'm in the county.
In the whole county?
In the town, 400, I believe it was.
Okay. Has it grown much since then?
The county has, because you got lakes on both sides, and developments have taken place, and I think there is probably 16,000, 18,000 now.
Okay. Has Rutledge changed much in size since you were growing up?
No, ma'am.
Now, when you were growing up, did you have grandparents in your life?
I did, but they passed away when I was young. Both of them, well, 4 of them did.
Okay. And I know you had a brother growing up.
Zane.
Right. And
William Zane, and he passed away 6 years ago. He practiced and was assistant DA in Knoxville, and he practiced down here.
Right, and we're in Knoxville today.
We are.
Probably not too far from where he used to practice.
That's correct.
And he went by the name of Zane, right?
Correct.
And Zane was how much younger than you?
He was 5 years.
Okay. So you all didn't go to law school together?
No, ma'am.
When you were in high school, did you work at all? Did you help your dad with anything?
I was in the FFA, Future Farmers of America, and I'd have to feed a calf, a beef calf, to show it. And we did that, and raising tobacco, and on the farm with the hay and what have you. Just that.
Okay.
No paying job.
Now, when you graduated from high school, did you know you were going to college right after high school?
Yes.
Where did you decide to go?
I went to Carson Newman.
How did you pick Carson Newman?
Well, it's close, and they had wanted me to come to Carson Newman. I had friends, and the basketball coach and the baseball coach, Coach Netcher, Coach Holt, they wanted me to come.
Did you play sports at Carson Newman?
Yes, I did.
What'd you play?
Baseball 4 years, and basketball 4 years, and a captain my senior year.
What did you major in at Carson Newman?
Psychology and history.
Did you know then that you were going on to law school?
Yes, I guess I did.
Now, did you live over at Carson Newman, or did you live in Rutledge while you were going there?
I lived in Jefferson City. And I got married we got married my senior year. And then there was a bad car wreck when Mom was involved. And then the wife and me, we moved back home and take care of Zane.
Zane had been, who was in the car wreck? I didn't understand.
My dad and Mom.
Oh, okay. So Zane would have been in high school then?
He was high school.
Did your parents recover from the wreck?
Well, they recovered, but Dad had broken hip, I remember, and Mom's lungs were collapsed, and it was a pretty serious wreck. Person in the other car got killed.
Did that happen in Rutledge?
No, it happened in Jefferson County.
Okay. So you and your wife, Merle, moved back home from Jefferson City, moved back to Rutledge to help take care of Zane.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, tell us a little bit about your wife. Of course, I knew her. What was her name before she married you?
She was a Hood, Muriel Annette Hood. She was from Joppa.
That's right. And where is Joppa?
Joppa is about 7 or 8 miles below Rutledge on 11W, like you're coming back to Knoxville.
Right. It's about halfway between Blaine and Rutledge.
That's correct. You know that area, so.
I know it well. Now, Muriel was the way her name was spelled, but what did everybody call her?
Well, I guess because Merle.
Merle, okay.
But she would correct people sometimes. It's Muriel. But she never complained about it.
How did you meet her?
In high school. Went to high school together. She played basketball. Of course, I played basketball in high school, and one thing led to another, I guess.
Okay. Did she ever work outside the home?
She did to begin with. She worked for a bituminous coal company, secretary in Knoxville.
How long did she do that?
She did that 2 to 3 years, and then she was a housewife.
Okay. You all had your first child?
Yes.
And what was his name?
It's Larry Creed, but it had a nickname Cooter.
And what do you remember what your Cooter was born?
He was born in 56 or 57.
And Cooter lives in Rutledge now, doesn't he?
He does.
Tell us about his hobby. He's got a real interesting hobby.
Well, he's always been in the music business. He worked in Nashville and with Conway Twitty and some of the recording studios, and he had a country band, a honky-tonk type band, and still plays and writes music, and he's got 2 people now that he's managing that record in Nashville, and last year he was in the horse business, a quarter horse racing business. He had a horse up in Indianapolis and did real well, and he had that, but he lives just down on the farm.
Do y'all see each other real often?
Well, I did see him, yeah, we'd see him about 4 or 5 times a week. He'd come up, eat, bring the grandchild and the wife, and I'd see him.
Who's he married to?
Well, presently it's a Darla.
Okay. And they have a
Darla.
little child.
They have Dawson Creed, who is 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
He's beginning to go to school some.
Okay. Does Cooter have any other children?
No, he doesn't.
Okay. And then you all have another, you and Merle had another child who's quite a bit younger than Cooter.
About 18 years, 18, 20 years, and that's Dirk.
And we've already talked a little bit about Dirk doing well as a golfer, and went to college and played golf, and then went to law school at UT.
Right.
And where does he practice law?
He practiced in Rutledge, in the same office as I'm in.
Has he always practiced with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Does Dirk have children?
2 girls.
Who's he married to?
He's married to Lori, and she was a Phillips.
Okay. What are Dirk's girls' names?
Riley Zane, the Zane after my brother Zane, and Kendall Page, Daniel, and she's 3 and Riley's 6 in 1st grade.
And they all live in Rutledge also?
He lives at right.
Okay. Now, your brother Zane, like you mentioned, died several years ago. He had some boys, didn't he?
He's got 2, Jeff and Todd, and both of them practice law here in Knoxville.
Have you ever had a case with either one of them?
No, but no, haven't had that.
Of those grandchildren, do you think any of those are going to turn out to be lawyers?
I don't know. The 2 girls, I don't know. They're very active, and Dawson Creed is beginning to get active too, and I don't know.
Okay. I want to back up a little bit. I was trying to do this sort of in chronological order, but we kind of get sidetracked on other things here. You went to law school at UT.
Correct.
Did you go right after you graduated from Carson Newman? Did you start at UT?
The same quarter.
Okay.
And went straight through at UT.
What year did you graduate from UT?
UT, I graduated, well, let's go back a little. I put it down there this morning. I was licensed to practice in '59, and I went and I got the degree in '58, and I went 2 years, and let's see, I got 4, 8, and a quarter.
Okay.
I went straight through.
You went in the summers?
Yes.
Okay. Did you and Merle live down here in Knoxville then?
In Rutledge. Come back and forth.
How long was that drive every day?
Oh, it's 30 miles. Question how fast you go.
How long, maybe I should ask you that, Creed. How long did it take you to drive from your house in Rutledge to the law school?
I could be easy there in 30 minutes.
Okay. Okay. So if I've heard it was less time than that, that's just not good information.
Well, I might have been less time that sometimes.
If somebody told me 15 minutes, that wouldn't be true?
Well, it'd be between 15 minutes and 30.
Okay. Is the truth coming out?
Well, I don't want all of it, too.
Why did you decide to go to law school?
I don't know. I just went. My dad was an attorney, and they had, I guess, just following in tracks, and it was easy to go there at that time. My dad, when he went to school on an attorney, all they did was read the law, and it was a Duncan, I think it's Duncan, it wasn't Duncan, but anyway, John R. Neal Law School in Knoxville, and you didn't have to work that hard. Anybody could sort of get in if you wanted to go at that period of time. And that's what I wanted to do.
Now, once you got in, did a lot of people, did everybody stay in and graduate? Or did a lot of people leave law school after they got in?
After they got in, I think we was discussing that with Mr. Bernstein and when to go, and we didn't have that many people. I think it was probably 15 or what have you, and we had one girl I think was in our class, and they wasn't no women hardly going to law school. At that time there was, I recall, and when I got out, there was 2 women lawyers in Knoxville.
Do you remember their names?
Irma Greenwood was one of them, and Miss Strauss was in with her husband, and Miss Greenwood was with Kramer Dye McNabb, that firm, and a good lawyer, and Miss Strauss was it was in a collection attorneys is the way I remember them. I never saw her in court.
Was Miss Strauss's first name Amelia Strauss?
I believe that's correct.
Okay, okay.
I believe that's correct. I never had a case with her. I think I met her 1 or 2 times, but that's about all I know.
Okay, so would you say that the number of women increasing in the profession has been a big change since you first started?
A complete change.
Do you remember any favorite professors you had at UT Law School?
Well, it had Mr. Noel, Mr. Dixon Noel. I think he was torts, and Overton was in there, Professor Overton, and he was 2 or 3 others. It wasn't near as big as it is now. I mean, there wasn't that many professors, period.
Were there any classes that you especially enjoyed when you were in law school?
I enjoyed torts.
Now, did you make a lot of friends in law school that you've kept in touch with over the years?
Yes, ma'am, sure did.
Who were some of those folks?
Well, one of them whose office we're in now was Mr. Bernie Bernstein, and Mr. Chester Rainwater, who was our chancellor. My dad was county court clerk, and his dad was county court clerk. He went to law school, and I went to law school, and we just sort of knew each other from that period of time, and many more that are still practicing and just settled in and around Knoxville and adjoining counties.
Now, was Chester Rainwater from Dandridge?
Dandridge.
Okay. When you got out of law school, what did you do?
I passed the bar.
Okay. Did you do you know if that's changed from when what it was back then to today? Was it still given twice a year back in the late 50s?
It was.
Okay.
And I then took the bar, passed it, and then admitted to federal court, and I went back to Rutledge to practice law.
Did you ever think about practicing law anywhere else?
Well, it's a funny situation, but when Congressman Duncan, Jimmy Duncan now, he wanted Zane, and he formed a partnership, and Jimmy said, Creed, come down and we'll give you a room down here, and said it'd make our firm look more. I'd have one more in the firm. It'd look a little bit better. So they got me to come down here, and I stayed about 3 or 4 months, and I head back to Rutledge. It wasn't for me.
Why wasn't practicing in Knoxville for you?
Well, I had to drive 60 miles a day, and I knew more people in Rutledge certainly than I did down here. And I just went back home. I stayed there ever since.
Now, I remember a time when there were only 2 lawyers in Rutledge. You and Judge Wayne Wolfenbarger had a law practice, not together, but you were the only 2 lawyers I knew for a long time. When you first started practicing in Rutledge, were there more attorneys than just yourself?
Well, my dad was there still at that
Right.
time, and Judge Wolfenbarger, who's now session judge, is Dwayne Wolfenbarger. He was there, and when it first started, it was Judge Ellis, and there was a fellow named Schubert Beaver. They were older attorneys, and they were there at that time, and they didn't practice that much.
Do you remember Judge Ellis's first name?
CK.
Okay.
He was president of the bank, Citizens Bank.
Okay. Now, over time, let's back up a minute to when you first started practicing. Did
Okay.
you have to open up your own office, or did you go to work in your dad's office?
I was in Dad's office, and he put me trying lawsuits immediately.
Okay. Did you know what to do?
Well, you can learn pretty fast if you're out there in the courtroom. And we was, at that period of time, Judge Bob Taylor was on the federal bench, and if you could practice in his court, I mean, you could learn real fast.
Now, did you come to Knoxville to federal court
Yes.
a lot?
Well, to begin with, I mean, we had it, if you had a personal injury case wherein that you sued for over $10,000, you had to be in your state court. That was as much, if it's over 10,000, 10 and above, and you could be removed to come to federal court. And I didn't know that much about federal procedure at that period of time, so what's the case? We could file for $9,500, which was a pretty good amount at that period of time.
And that would keep you out of federal court?
That'd keep you out of federal court, and you'd have your local jury.
Okay. Were the rules different in federal court and state court?
Yes.
When
But I had some good experiences in federal court. I mean, everybody would say if you could practice in Judge Robert Taylor's federal system, that you could practice anywhere, and I guess that's correct.
Why did people say that about him?
Well, as you know, a federal judge can comment on the testimony, and he can take over the trial. And he took over one completely that I had, and I could have gone home. He tried it for me.
Did that turn out well for your client?
It turned out extremely well. You want to hear about it?
Sure, I'd love to.
Okay. There was a mother and her daughter was coming through Granger County and pulling a little trailer and going into Texas. And at Blaine, Tennessee, and you know exactly where that is, Jackie, that there's a guy come around the curve, lost control of his car, and slammed into this car, and they'd pulled to the shoulder of the road. The mother was killed, and the daughter had a scar, bad scar on her face. That was a young girl, very attractive. And this attorney called me from Texas, I think it's Dallas, and wanted me to file a lawsuit for the girl. He had done settled the death case.
Okay.
And he said, would you file it? And we worked out the deal, and he told me how much he would pay me, and I said, yeah, I'll file it. So we go, file it, and here we are trying the lawsuit against a good firm in Knoxville, as Poorcox Baker McCall. Heartburn was defended. Put my little girl on the stand and asked her, will you just tell the court and the jury what happened? And she started and just broke down crying. Broke down crying. Judge Taylor said, young lady, this is not a court for you to be crying in. We're not, no sympathy gonna be had, and just tell us a fact. And at that time, that gave me the opportunity. I said, but Your Honor, her mother was killed in this accident. "Oh, young lady," he says, "I am so sorry I mentioned that." And the jury, he says, "Don't you all consider that in any respect?" Said, "I shouldn't have said that." And so he just took over the trial for me, and I could have gone home and got the maximum verdict. But that was a good experience, and because he could testify, he could do anything he wanted to do as a federal judge at that period of time.
Okay. Now, were the federal juries at that time picked from a wider area of East Tennessee, or were they mostly Knoxville?
No, there's I think around 10 counties.
Okay. As your practice got started, were you making any money?
I made $3,500 the first year.
Was
we
that
had a secretary? Then I made second year $5,800, I think. And at that time, to try to make a living, you do income taxes, and you do an income tax for somebody, and they'd pay you $15, and then they'd get it ready to sign off on. They say, "Oh, I had a cow that died that I'd paid $100 for," and then you'd have to go back and refigure it and everything, trying to get it in there so it'd be a legal situation. And then after the second year, I was on my way.
Do you still do income taxes for people now?
No, Lord have mercy, no.
So would it be fair to say that the practice of law has been good to you?
It has been good, and I've enjoyed it.
Now, other than the time you came to Knoxville and practiced a little while with Zane Daniel, your brother, and Jimmy Duncan, have you ever had anybody else practicing with you in your office besides your dad? I realize you practiced with your dad too.
After Dad passed away, Sir Rick Scroggins, who had graduated from Kingswood School, and he went to Berea College and then to law school right out of Washington, came down to the office one day, and he was in his blue jeans and said, "Creed, I want to practice law with you." Well, I said, "Dad's passed away. There's an office in here, and you can go. You can have that office. I'll pay your phone bill, and you use the secretary, and you keep what you make." And Kingswood School was sort of a private school, and Rick and his mother had come from Texas, and he had a home up at Kingswood. And he stayed there, and then had an offer as assistant DA, going to be stationed in Dandridge, and he asked me, should he take it? I said, yes, you need the trial experience. And he did that, and he's done real well. He practices in Jefferson City at the present time.
How long did he practice with you there in Rutledge?
Probably 2 years.
Okay. It sounds like when you first started practicing, you did a big variety of cases. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
You did some criminal cases, some domestic cases, tort cases.
I even filed a bankruptcy case or two at that period of time. You have to, as you know, and you're well familiar with Granger County citizens, having been raised there, you get a variety of everything.
Right.
And if you're practicing law, you couldn't then cull and go with just one type of lawsuits.
Can you think of, that sounds like one way that your practice was different from somebody in a big firm, because a lot of times in big firms people sort of specialize in one or two different things. Can you think of other ways your practice in a small town was different from the bigger city lawyers?
Well, you have to be involved in politics. You have to be with the social clubs, with the Lions clubs. You have to be involved in the city business and all this, and where in a big city, you wouldn't have to fool with a lot of that stuff. You didn't want to.
How do you avoid conflicts in a small county where, there aren't many lawyers? I've heard that's treated a little bit differently sometimes in a small town. How does that work?
Well, lots of times you get involved to begin with, then you just conflict yourself out being in the lawsuit, period. And it's tough. You just sort of, I guess, knowing the people and whether you've represented the other sides or what have you. Of course, you'll have lots of times somebody that you've been against will say, hey, and they get another case, hey, we want you to represent us. They said, you was fair with us, and we want you to represent us. And you got no conflict if it's a different case, and it's tough.
Has that happened a lot where somebody that was on the opposite side then next time wants you to be their lawyer?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I know in Granger County, a lot of the courthouse offices close at noon on Wednesday. Do you usually close your office at noon on Wednesday?
No.
Have you ever?
Yes. Maybe didn't go to work Wednesday morning if it's a golf match or something.
Now, you were telling me a few minutes ago about how Rutledge is 30 minutes from Dandridge, which of course is the county seat of Jefferson County, and 30 minutes from Morristown, which is the county seat of Hamlin County. Was there enough business to keep you busy in Granger County, or did you have to go to all these other counties to work?
Well, you have certain clients, let's say from Granger County, it has a rec in Jefferson County. So now you're just pulled to all of them if you want to accept those cases.
Do you still go to all the counties around Granger County?
Yes, but I'm slowing down. Not as much as I used to, let's say it that way.
In your practice, did people generally call and make an appointment, or did they just show up?
Just show up.
Is that still true today?
Yes.
How has I'd kind of like for you to tell us a little bit about how your practice has changed over the years. It sounds like you don't do income tax anymore. Are there other things you don't do anymore?
No bankruptcies.
No bankruptcies.
And some of the criminal cases that come to you, I mean, you want to accept them or not accept them, and in all these smaller counties, the practice has changed because there's more drug-related cases, and of course, there's always going to be divorce cases, and just things of that nature where it's changed. And then you just, if you take the case, you may be in Claiborne County, you may be in Knox County, and it's changed to that extent.
Do you do a lot of criminal work now?
Yes.
How has that part of your practice changed over the years?
You got more, well, when I first started, see, you didn't have discovery depositions. That wasn't, you could hide all your witnesses out to the extent you didn't have to tell nobody who your witness was going to be or anything, just show up with them.
Was that true in civil and criminal cases?
Yes, ma'am. But now, I mean, the DAs will work with you. They'll show you their files, what have you, and it's more of it's a better system now because you know what the case is about, you know what your problems is. And then at the time when it was starting, 11W had a name. Do you remember what it was?
Yes, I do.
It's Bloody 11W. I thought you would remember that. And it would be some terrible wrecks. And then, of course, you'd have litigations. And now you've got the interstate that bypasses Rutledge a lot.
Right.
You don't have the big truck traffic. Used to, our courtroom had no air conditioning in it. And in the hot July and June for cases, the windows is open, here's the big trucks coming. Well, you could throw a baseball and hit it out of the courtroom. And all that's changed now, period. You don't have that type of traffic. Then I think that, I've told some people, the insurance companies have got more wised up and settle the cases before they ever get to an attorney or into court.
Has mediation changed your practice a lot?
It's changed the practice everywhere. I've talked to judges in Knoxville and what have you. You'd be surprised how few cases, jury cases, that they try. And I think that the mediation, you don't have now the good trial lawyers that you had when I first started practicing law. Because it's mediation. That may be good. It may be where it's all going to wind up. But we would try cases constantly when I practice to begin with. You practice. Sometimes we would have 2 jury cases same day, same courtroom. Get right to the point, try them, and now that's very rare.
When was the last time you had a jury trial?
Oh, last year. I mean, this year. Yeah, we still have a few jury trials.
What kind of case was your last jury trial?
The last one, well, we had a defendant, our client, that was accused of a statutory rape of a young girl, we tried it to the extent. Not guilty.
Not guilty.
It's funny, it turned out the way it was.
Was that tried in Granger County?
It was.
Now, are there more jury trials? Are you seeing more jury trials in criminal cases?
That's about the only ones now. Oh, you may have a little fender bender, this, that, and the other, but the people don't try them. In other words, they settle them through mediation, wherein they would be trying to begin with.
Right. I'd like to talk about a few of your trials, but it might be a good time for us to take a little short break. We've been going about an hour.
That's up to you.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
We were going to talk a little bit about some significant cases you've handled, some cases that you felt like were important to your career or for one reason or another. Is there any cases in particular that come to mind?
Well, yes, some.
Okay.
I told you about the federal court
Yes.
deal. I had a snake case in Rutledge. And it's interesting, and everybody got trying to figure out, and people wanted to get on the jury and all this. There was a pet store in Knoxville had a albino diamondback rattlesnake. And it's a pretty good sized snake, one snake. And the old snake died. And they wanted to preserve that snake, and they went to the 2 people, main taxidermists here in Knoxville, and none of them would touch it because it's rare. So they decided to come to Blaine, and the taxidermist was up there. He said he could do it. So they take the snake up there, and they paid so much down and paid $35. They had a check. Said when they come get it, they'd bring them the check. Well, lo and behold, he asked them how they wanted the snake fixed. where they want it long and just like laying down. No, it would have been too long, they said. Well, do you want it up with its pores like it's going to strike? No, that wouldn't be. Said, well, we got a piece of driftwood we could put it on. Of course, that was the first mistake, putting a rattlesnake on a piece of driftwood. And so he fixed the snake up and had painted it and put the eyes and everything in it. And when they came to get it, they brought him a $35 check, and they took the snake back down there. And they called him, and they stopped payment on the check. He goes and gets a warrant out, a civil warrant for the $35.
This is in General Sessions Court?
In General Sessions Court. Well, they then cross-filed because he said he did a bad job, and they sued him for $100,000, I think. Now that gets us there where we go into court. He came to me, represent him, on a $35 check, and well, I did, because it's just an interesting case. We talked about it all week, and jurors had been sitting in there, and Judge Bill Holt, circuit judge.
Let me interrupt you to ask you a question about the court. That this was originally filed in General Sessions Court, but because of the counterclaim for $100,000, did it get moved up to circuit court?
It got moved up.
Okay.
It got moved up because they filed their cross-action up there.
Okay.
So here we are. And Judge Holt would always say, well, what about that snake case? When's it going to be heard? Well, Judge, I think you got it scheduled for Thursday or what day it was. Well, he said that's okay. So we pick, the juries is up in the box, and I said, well, we're going to probably handle some snakes today. And everybody then wanted to get on the jury. They wanted to see what's going on. I fixed me a little box, a little pasteboard box, and I put two snakes that had done been fixed, and they had looked real, but of course it wasn't. They was original, but yeah, they'd done been to taxidermist, and he had them all fixed up. I got me a handle and cut some little holes in the top so that you might see that snake down in there, and I carried that box around with me everywhere I'd go that day. And them jurors would come by, and they'd get over there and they'd peep around and what have you. And we tried that case all day long. And they said it wasn't a good job, and it didn't look like a snake, and this, that, and the other. And they...
Now, let me interrupt you again. Did you have the actual snake that the
yeah,
taxidermist client had?
Yeah, that they'd done put it in evidence, and it was a little flat on one side, and it didn't look the best. The color wasn't the best of the white, the way the snake was. But it was in there, and I had these 2 or 3 snakes that was in that little pasteboard box. And them jurors would come, and they'd stand back and peep around and see if they could see the snakes. They didn't know whether it was alive or otherwise. We tried it all day long, and the jury came back and gave my man $35 judgment, $35. And they was wanting to give me that snake to take home with me. I've always regretted I didn't take that snake home with me.
So the counterclaimant
dismissed
the countercomplaint.
Yeah.
Did you ever show the snakes that were in your pasteboard box?
No, I didn't show them. I just left them in there.
I just have to ask you: did the countercomplainant, the pet store that had hired the taxidermist, did they have expert proof?
Yes.
Okay.
You could see it wasn't the best job. Why
do you think you
I don't
got
know.
their counterclaim dismissed?
Well, that's a jury trial. The jury rules on it. They may have thought the snake, he did a good job for him. And I guess a bunch of people knew him. He's a local taxidermist.
Was that Mr. Ridge?
It was. I was going to let you tell who it was.
That was Mr. Tom Ridge.
Mr. Tom Ridge, that's who I represented.
Well, did the pet store have a local attorney?
Knoxville.
Who was that? Do you remember?
Don't remember.
Do you think that had anything to do with the outcome of the case?
I guess it did. I never did inquire. Just, I'd made a third of $35, so, and I was just getting out of there as fast as I could get.
Why was this case important to you, other than it's an interesting story?
No, sometimes attorneys will take a case. I mean, it's a different case.
Right.
And, I mean, not just bogged down with the same divorce case every time and what have you. And I knew Tom. And, heck, he's sued. And he no insurance, and he's facing $100,000. And I thought, well, if I can help him, I will.
Well, good for you. It sounds like that was a great outcome for your client in that case.
Oh, he was happy.
And what happened to the albino rattlesnake?
I don't know. I don't know who took it or what have you. It was a rare snake, though. They said.
I think you should have kept it.
I do too. After I got thinking about it.
Now, have you, over the years, I know you've done a lot of plaintiff's work. Have you had quite a few cases that involved cases against insurance companies, or where the defendant was represented by an insurance company lawyer?
A lot of them.
Do you remember a case somebody told me about that involved State Farm, where you wore a particular colored jacket?
I think I do.
What color was it?
It was either red or green. I'm forgetting which one it was.
Was green maybe the color the State Farm
Yes.
people wore back then?
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it was a rear end hit by the State Farm person, and I think I told you my dad was, way before that, was State Farm agent. He wasn't at that time, and but somebody had on that the bumper of the vehicle a State Farm little sticker that they'd give away and what have you. And we tried it, and at that time you couldn't mention no insurance or anything, and I guess the jury could see that State Farm emblem, which would say in their minds, well, that person probably got State Farm insurance, so we'll go ahead and decide it, and we won the case.
Did you do anything to sort of reinforce that idea that State Farm might have been involved?
No. I can't admit it if I did. We had one that wherein that Judge Holt was a musician, and I had one against Allstate, and at that time they had the thing out, you know, you're in good hands with Allstate.
Yes.
And they had a jingle also at that time, and I sung that jingle to the jury, and Judge Holt commented. He said, "Well, if I knowed you was going to sing, Mr. Daniel," said, "I'd have brought my guitar." It's a fire case, and we did all right on it.
Were you representing somebody that
The plaintiff, yeah, that their house had burned and they hadn't paid them.
the insurance company had not
Yes.
paid because they thought your client had burned their house?
I guess.
Okay. Or
I don't know what they thought. Anyway, they didn't pay. The company didn't.
Right. And you were successful in making the company pay.
Got a judgment. The company paid.
Now, you've mentioned Judge Holt a couple of times. What was Judge Holt's first name?
William Holt,
Where-
Judge Bill Holt from Sevierville.
Okay. The judicial district you're in is the 4th Judicial District, isn't it?
That's correct.
And what counties does that include?
You've got Judge Fogarty, who I was before this morning. He has Blount County, which the other civil criminal judges do not have. He's got Blount and the other Granger, Jefferson. He's got Cock and Sevier, and he's got that. And you've got the other 4 judges: Judge Ogle, Judge Vance. You've got Judge Hooper, and Dwayne Sloan as the other 4 judges, and they've tried criminal and civil.
Right. And they have the 4 counties: Granger, Sevier, Cock, and
Jefferson, right. Well, but Fogarty has that also.
Right.
But he's added, they don't have Blount County.
Okay. You've also tried some pretty well-known criminal cases in your career, haven't you?
Yes.
You were involved, one that I'd like for you to talk a little bit about is the one that involved a lawyer, Mary Evans, that helped her boyfriend escape from jail. You were involved in that trial. Who did you represent in that?
Jim Bell and I represented Kirk.
And who was he?
He was the defendant. He was the person that the Knoxville lawyer woman was representing, and I guess what you'd call fell in love with.
And he was at Brushy Mountain at that time?
He was in Brushy Mountain. And he was in there, and they had a bunch of time, there's people dead, and a bunch of them was being mistreated by the fellow inmates that was in there. So they made it up that they wasn't going to continue letting that happen, and they got a gun in there, and they but before that, the Murray Evans was who was representing Mr. Kirk, and it was arranged that where he would go see a doctor, and in the bathroom he got a gun, and they went in there, and she and he left the country and escaped and was not found for some time. But anyway, they went ahead and tried Mr. Kirk, and he wasn't present.
They tried him for escape?
No, they tried him for the original stuff.
Okay.
That he was, because they had filled the keys, the locks to the jail cells with toilet paper, so that the guards and everything couldn't get them out. And they was in there, and they was shooting at them, and they was hiding behind the mattresses and this, that, and the other. And Tim Kirk was not. He was not. He just said he wasn't going to put up with all that, and they got it for $35 a gun. And then they started opening fire and what have you.
And this happened at Brushy Mountain?
Yeah, at Brushy Mountain. But them two escaped, Tim and his lawyer. Well, Judge Asbury wanted to go ahead, and he did try the case with him not being there.
And what was Judge Asbury's first name?
Let me think.
Is it Lee?
Lee Asbury. It sure was. We was in law school together, and we ate bologna sandwiches and peanut butter crackers a bunch of times upstairs with it. Yeah, it's Lee. I just couldn't think of it right then. He has a daughter, an attorney, and a son. They're practicing now, and I think daughters are running for some public office. Lee was my friend and a good person. But Jim Bell put a chair down and had it, Tim Kirk's pasteboard, and put there at the seat, but never nobody in it.
And this was at the trial. Was that in Scott County?
Is in where Brushy Mountain is.
Okay.
And they had, the jury then, we tried it, they came back. And the only thing they convicted him for was kidnapping of the guards.
And this had to do with when he escaped from prison?
Yes.
But
they had threatened the guards, and the guards, of course, were local people. That was the neighbors that was on the jury. And they didn't care from the shooting and what they was going to do to the other people. But and then it was some time for that Tim Kirk has ever come back. But they picked him up back and then put him, he had to go back through some of the other stuff. I don't know whatever happened then.
do you know if he's still in prison today?
I do not know.
How did you get involved in that representation?
Through Jim Bell, and they wanted to appoint another attorney, and Judge Asbury told him to come get Creed Daniel.
Okay. Now, that case was pretty well known because it involved a lawyer that was accused of helping her client escape. Did that get a lot of publicity for you?
Well, Jim Bell and me both were on the front page of Rolling Stone magazines. They mentioned us. I don't know how many people read it, but they maybe passed over it. But yeah.
I've heard that you were also mentioned in a book that was written about that. Were you and Mr. Bell mentioned in the book?
I think so.
Any other kind of well-known criminal cases you might like to talk about a little bit?
Well, we had one in Claiborne County where our client was accused of murder, and that his wife, they put her in hot water, he said, and burned her real bad, and she didn't go to the doctor, became infected, and she died. And we had David Eldridge. The court appointed him because it's a death case, and we had that one in Claiborne County. It was a Hancock County case. It was, I think we heard it in Claiborne County. Zane me had one where that our client was married to this person, and they was in the car, and they got in a scuffle, and the man got shot and killed, and they wanted to prosecute his wife. The daddy of the boy that was killed had made a comment, and he had the Christmas tree Inn. It was up in where you turn off to go to a Follett. And he'd lost one other son, had been shot, murdered, and he made the comment that if jury didn't convict that woman, that he'd take it in his own hands in the courtroom. And Judge Asbury was in that deal also. Well, the daddy sat 2 seats right behind the defense table. And we just took precaution, and we had a guy that was sitting right behind him in overall breeches. And he was a highway patrolman with the gun and all, but the father didn't know that. They came back in with a manslaughter was all it was, and they put her on probation, and the guy didn't do nothing. So we got out of that. And okay.
Did you consider that a success to get
Very
a manslaughter conviction?
Yes.
Do you think that our jury system is a good one?
No question. I think it was spoken of by our president, taking issue with the jury that handled that Florida case where the boy was turned loose. I forgot what the name of it.
Are you thinking about the Trayvon Martin murder?
Yes, I think that's what it was. And our president commented on that fact that he didn't think is right. And a jury will give you, in other words, they're not right every time, but that's the best system that you could get, in my opinion. The jury is a vital procedure in creating what's justice for everybody. I know they may make mistakes, but put it with a judge doing it without a jury. He may make a mistake too.
Right.
Yes, I believe wholeheartedly in the jury system.
Have you ever tried a case where you thought the jury got it wrong?
Of course. But you've got to believe your client sometimes.
That's right.
No boy came back and somebody said, well, you lied up there on the stand. He said, well, what would you do for trying to send me to the penitentiary? He just stopped it. He thought he's wanting to stay out of the penitentiary. And they said, well, you've lied. So what? You have it's unreal as to how a jury thinks. You ever sat on a jury?
I have not. Have you?
No, just in law school. That wasn't too good.
Have you seen, since you're one of the few lawyers I think that still tries quite a few jury trials, have you seen juries change over the years, like become more educated because of things they see on TV, or do you think juries are basically the same as they were when you started practicing?
I think it changed.
How do you think they've changed?
Well, you don't have Perry Mason in some of these situations, and you take 12 people, and it is unreal. I remember we had a criminal case in Granger County, and it was getting down late that evening. The jury was still back deliberating, and I think it was Judge Porter. Judge Ken Porter was the criminal judge at that time. He sent the bailiff into the jury where they was deliberating, and he said, see if they'd like something to drink. And they came back out there and said, Judge, you probably got a hung jury. He said, why is that? He said, the 12 ordered 11 of them Coca-Colas and 1 Pepsi. Porter said, well, I guess I might as well turn the jury loose, declare a mistrial, and try it again. But just stuff like that, and you never know. I mean, if you're a defense attorney, you just got to have one juror.
You mean if you're a criminal defense attorney?
Yes, defense attorney in a criminal case. I mean, they can hang it or what have you. You get into that situation. And the cases, sometimes you think there's no question you're going to win, that's one you lose. And one you don't give much chance of winning, and that's jury comes back, they give you a verdict.
Can you think of a case that's been the biggest surprise to you about one either you thought you'd win and you lost, or one you thought you'd lose and you won?
I'll give you one illustration, and you know exactly where it is. On Lakeshore Road, there's a curve over Longmire's. It's a tomato place, and it's a tractor trailer, and the person we represented was a Granger County person. We thought there was no way that we'd get a verdict, but his testimony came out that this boy was headed to church and had his Bible in the car, and he was killed.
And that's who you represented?
That's who we represented. And it looked like he was completely on the wrong side of the road, but his tractor trailer had hit him, and the jury came back in our favor. And his dad and mom sat there and sobbed during the trial. Now you say, did that have any bearing on it? Did the Bible, the catch, have any bearing on it? I don't know. I always thought it did. And they came back with a verdict. He was a Granger County boy, tractor trailer.
Now, when something like that happens, does the defense attorney usually appeal?
They didn't in that case.
Okay.
You know, your appellate courts is, of course, losers' court. You ever think of that?
That's a way to think of it. Yes, I agree.
If they've done lost to begin with, or they wouldn't be appealing.
Right.
So it makes it easy for the appellate judges, unless it's some mistake that the court's made or evidence it's in that shouldn't have been in or what have you, misconduct or what have you.
Do you do much appellate work?
There's not that much trial stuff going on at the present time.
In your earlier years of practice, did you do any appellate work?
Yes, but not a lot. I just always figured if you couldn't win with your 12 people, where are you going to go to?
Well, that's a way to look at it. I want to kind of switch gears a little bit and just talk about your office. Talk a little bit about not lawyers that you've worked with in your own office, but your staff, your secretary or your legal assistant. What kind of help like that have you had over the years?
We've been fortunate, and you'd have the same secretary for a period of time. When the girl had been with me 12, 13, 14 years, I take it, and the chancellor called me and said he wanted my secretary as clerk and master. I said, okay, it's a better job. You've got her. She's still up there as your clerk and master. The one that.
And what's her name?
Vicky Greenway. Vicky, and she married a Hodge, and she may be going by Greenway or Hodge, I'm not for sure.
Okay.
But anyway, then we just have one secretary. You get a good one. And we've had two most of the time, but they usually stay. If they get a job, there's not that many you can find. I mean, you keep them, as you know.
What's the secret to keeping a good secretary or good staff people working for you?
Them having trust in you and willing to work and have an interest that wants to help you and that can do the work themselves.
Is there any special tips about how you treat your secretary to keep them to working for you?
No, just pay them. They're working for money. Pay them, be good to them, let them off when they need to be off. Have an environment where they feel good, everything. But they can make you or break you. I used to always say, everybody in the banking business, they won't know who's the president or vice president. The most important person is that little teller that's out there at the front. That's who you meet. That's who takes your money, who gets you out. Same way with your secretary.
Now, I know you sometimes have a lot of people come to your office, or I've seen that in the past. Do you still have people just show up to meet with you?
Yes. And nothing you can do about it, and you like to. They're your friends, or they wouldn't be in there.
Do you just have people wait till you're available to see them, or do you tell your secretary they need to tell these people to schedule an appointment and come back another day?
No, just see them when they come. No lunch hour, just keep going.
Okay. A long time ago, I think you remember this, I came to see you one day, back in, I think it was in '83, I was thinking about going to law school, and you had a room full of people sitting there that day waiting to talk to you.
But I listened to you, didn't I?
You did. You sure did. And then you told me you had all these people waiting to see you. I bet you had a dozen people there, and you asked me would I like to sit there in your office while you had these, people, potential clients come back one at a time, and you introduced me and told them I was thinking about going to law school and asked if they objected to me sitting there and listening to them. Would you do that today
I would.
Have you talked to other people over the years that were thinking about going to law school?
Yes.
What advice do you give people now about it?
It's a good profession, and if you devote yourself to it and you like law, it's still a good profession.
What do you tell people about different practice areas. Do you have any advice about areas that you think are especially good?
No, I don't get into that. They just got to make their own mind up.
Do you remember what you told me?
I told you to go on.
You did. You told me that there would always be a demand for divorce attorneys.
That's what I told you.
Has that changed?
No. You're handling divorces now?
I do. But do you see, in talking about ways that the practice has changed, in domestic relations, for example, because I know that's an area you've practiced in a lot, have you seen that area of practice change, where it's not so much divorces, maybe it's a lot of custody cases or other kinds of cases? Can you talk about that a little bit?
I think that that's one phase and one part of the law that's changed, wherein the courts are ordering mediation always.
Right.
And I think when you get the parties together and with a good mediator, and like I tell them if they're coming in the mediator, I said, we want to settle this. You work it out. And if you let the clients do all the talking and make their minds up, well, you don't even need a mediator. That's my thinking. I think the mediator, if they've had any experience, would know after they hear the facts basically what a judge has on his mind. That's my theory. And as a result thereof, there's very few cases that are not settled after they go through the mediation.
Do you think that's true in both domestic relations and other civil areas?
Yes, but I see a problem in, let's say, a mediation of a tort case. Insurance companies say, we'll give you $2,000. You say, no, I want $50,000. And then what they're trying to do is get back where in the middle so that they can do it. Well, you can do that without a mediator. I just, come down, well, will you do this? And you've been there. You know how that works. If you get a strong mediator, you can come in there, and if it's my client or it's the other one, maybe I've told them the same thing, but they want to hear it from somebody else.
Right. Do you do a lot of negotiating with the opposing attorney and settle cases that way without going to mediation?
Yes.
Was that more true back before we got mandated to go to mediation so often?
Yes, and of course it is now too. Some of the judges will require you to mediate, and some say, if you all work it out yourself, give us the deal. The child support is a simple thing to figure. I believe so.
Right.
My secretary has to do all that. I'm not figuring out, but you get how many days they've got, and you make X amount of dollars, he makes X amount of dollars, and they got 2 children. Well, there it is.
Mediation is certainly one way that the law has changed even since I've been practicing. Can you think of some other ways that the practice of law has changed, maybe related to technology or how lawyers get along with each other, collegiality, things like that? Well,
it's completely changed. Use your federal system. You file now by electronics, different ways to file. Used to, you take it down there and you file it and you stamp. Now I take it to do the other bases, or you have your secretary or somebody that knows something about it to do it. I think that every year that it's going to the electronic filings and all these things that you've got. A lot of it takes away the human factor in the practice of law. It's my thinking, but nothing I can do about it, or nothing you can do. It just happens. Take workman's comp now. We don't see the workman's comp cases that you used to have under the new systems. And
that would be a way that legislation has impacted the practice of law.
No question. That's what I'm really You worded it better than I did.
Can you think of some other areas where legislation has changed from when you started practicing law? I guess that was a little more than 50 years ago.
Well, you keep up with you about got it figured out. Yes, that is correct. But it's I still think the human factor is needed in the practice of law. I think people need to try more lawsuits. It's hard to, you have advertising, which it looks like it's taken over the country, and there's so much money spent on the advertising, and I've had people to come to me, they'd got attorney that's advertised, doing advertising, and boom, boom, they're dissatisfied. They don't intend to go to court. They want just to get the thing, and if they're paying what I understand they're paying per month for advertising, they've got to turn them over. You got to turn the cases over. And so many of the clients are dissatisfied with that procedure, what they've done. I see it, and I think that has hurt advertising. You take a person that with no experience at all, get on TV, advertise, well, somebody's going to send something to him or her. You believe that?
I don't disagree with the thing you're saying, Creed. Do you, when you first started practicing, was there advertising?
No. One first place was J.D. Lee, and J.D. Lee's still practicing here in Knoxville, and was one of my very good friends. I'll never forget. He put up a big sign on Gay Street at his office, the deal, and the Knoxville bar had him cited in on it. I remember that.
Do you remember when that was?
No, that's been quite a while ago. But he asked me to be a witness for him, and I was.
We need to take a little break, I'm being told.
That's fine.
Creed, we were talking about some different cases you've tried over the years, and I thought it would be interesting to know about one of the first few cases you tried. Maybe not your first one, but one of the first few cases you tried. And you were telling me that back when you started practicing, you could try a case to the county court. I wasn't familiar with that, so tell me about that.
Well, they're calling out commissioners.
Okay.
They were squires at that time.
Okay.
The old deal. And you'd have one squire is not squire, from each district. So we had 6 or 7, and they would try a case.
Would they sit as the judge or the jury?
They'd sit at both of them. They'd try the case, period. They're just the same as your sessions judge now.
Okay.
So one of the first ones I ever had was a Mr. Farr, and he was a brother to my granddad Farr. And he agreed to try this old case. It's $200 or $300, just a small case. They just wanted it tried.
And when you say he agreed to try it, you are meaning he agreed to sit as a judge?
Yeah.
But was he a lawyer?
No.
Were any of these squires lawyers?
No, ordinarily not.
Okay.
I mean, there might be one, Owen Marshall, that went on to be a judge. He wasn't a lawyer. And you had some of these.
Okay.
But anyway, Mr. Farr agreed to try it, and it was a hot day, and we tried it under a maple tree in his yard. Bring chairs out and just try it just like you and I are talking here now.
Now, what kind of case was it?
It's a wreck case.
Okay.
There's probably $300 or $400 all that's involved in it, and we tried it And he just said, well, I think that the defendant is liable. We award $300 or $400 over what it was. And we're trying it right under shade tree, right in his front yard. He brought chairs out.
Now, who was the other? You represented the person, the plaintiff.
Yeah.
Who did the defendant have a lawyer?
He had one, but I don't know who it was. It's just like we're sitting in here now. I mean, he just decided, listen, he could make his mind up just the same for you as he would for me. But that was, they could try him at that period of time. Then, of course, that merged into your Sessions Court judge. And when I was the county judge, I had juvenile jurisdiction, see. So the juveniles would be brought before me. And I told somebody the other day, we never had no drug cases. I never sent nobody reformatory. Only thing you had, they might have been chewing tobacco at school or smoking, or they didn't go to school. And that was the whole, that's the way the cases were at that period of time. Simple.
That's interesting. Now, back at that time, did juvenile court also handle custody cases between unmarried people?
No, I don't think so. Oh, I never did have any of those.
Okay.
You didn't have that many at that period of time. I mean, you just didn't. You don't have nothing like today. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Is that another area where the practice of law has changed?
Changed completely.
Do you go to juvenile court now? Do you still practice in there?
Sometimes, yes. If it's over custody, and sometimes, but not a lot.
Do you do any work in juvenile court where children are accused of criminal offenses?
Yes. Yes, sure do. But that's very rare now.
Okay. Rare for you to do that work?
Yeah, but those cases are rare too.
Okay. Why is that?
Well, there's just not that much stuff going on. The judge will hear him, and he'll send them for a few days and to spend in jail, and then put them under a probation. Today, probation given a defendant is used all the time. Then the judge, his theory of that is, let's give them one change if they haven't been into nothing.
Okay.
And now then, you see them so many times come back, and a person was in court the other day that I'd originally represented him sometime way on off, and violation probation. They don't go to the probation officer. They don't pay their fines. They don't pay their costs. And then they get another charge on them. And the judge, it's easy for him to say, okay, execute your sentence. They put an 8-year on a guy the other day just because he's back in court.
Now, when you're talking about people getting probation, are you speaking of both juvenile offenders and adult offenders?
Both. Both. The courts give them a break to begin with, and then if they don't take a break, it's very easy for them to say, execute your sentence. I mean, that's what they're doing a lot now.
And you see a lot of that in Granger County. I had a few other questions I wanted to ask you just kind of about the practice of law. We all have noticed how many electronic devices we all carry with us anymore, our phones, and people carry computers and things. Have you kept up with that, and do you use email? And
No, I don't. Let secretaries do that.
Okay. When you first started practicing, what kind of equipment did you have in your office?
Typewriter. I had a telephone, typewriter. I'd have to type sometimes myself.
How did you, if you
And a recorder. I mean, we'd have a recorder we could use.
How did you make copies if you needed more than one copy of something?
You do it, if you're typing it, you had carbon paper. You know what that is?
I do.
You're looking at me real strange.
Do you remember when you got, you know, significant pieces of office equipment?
No.
Did you, like, at some point, I assume you bought a copy machine?
Yes, or rented.
Okay. Do you remember about when that was?
No, I don't. It's been there a while, though.
Yeah, I imagined it had. What can you think of exactly what kind of pieces of equipment you have in your office today?
You have a recorder, of course, you got your computers, and you got the copy machine, and telephones, and just the standard stuff that an office would have.
Have you noticed, or do you think all of that technology has made people think you should be more accessible?
I don't know. I don't know.
Do your clients think they should have your cell phone number?
Some of them do, yes. And when you give that out, you call them on your cell phone, and then they've got your number. Somebody told me you could punch in some numbers and it didn't show up. But anyway, they get your number. The other day, one called me at a client at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my, what did you say?
I said, I'm trying to sleep. He said, what are you doing? I said, I was trying to sleep. Call me back at the office. What else can you say? They've done woke you up. And you think, well, I should answer. It might be an emergency, kids, something, what have you. You ever run into that?
Oh, I sure do, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think it's bad to give your number out if you sell. That's my opinion.
Why do you think that?
Because they've got access to you. They got access to you at all times.
I want to kind of follow up on a few things we had been talking about earlier, kind of switching gears a minute and talking about family. How important, I think it'd be fair to say that your wife, Merle, was a very supportive wife.
She was.
Helpful to you. How important?
And thank you for seeing her in the hospital.
Oh, you're welcome. She was a sweetie. How important do you think it is? How important was that to your career to have a good, supportive wife?
It's very, very important, because if you haven't got the support of your wife, and you got problems. Because an attorney, as you know, spends a lot of time. You're not going to be home to eat at 6 o'clock, and my wife Merle always had supper at 6. And I'm sure that your mother had a certain time you have supper. That's the old trait, and she'd leave some. If I got in at 8, got in at 9, or what time you got in, there'd still be something there to eat. And I think it's very important that the wife support the attorney and the husband support the wife, vice versa.
Now, you and Merle were active in your church, I think, for a lot of years, weren't you?
Sure was. I was a Sunday school teacher for a while. Got a certificate, 50 years church pianist, a plaque on it. That's a long time.
That is a long time. Do you still play the piano at church?
Every now and then. I'm trying to get somebody else to play. My fingers don't work the same way they used to.
Now, you've already told us a little bit about your college career at Carson Newman. You played basketball and baseball, but there was something else you did at Carson Newman that involved music. What was that?
Oh, I took piano lessons at Carson Newman.
Okay.
Captain basketball team and taking piano lessons.
Now, did you give some thought to doing something related to music instead of going to law school?
I did.
What was that?
Going with a gospel quartet. They offered me, they wanted me to go with them and to play the piano, not to sing, I might add. And I decided, no, I was going on to law school. And that's what I did.
Have you ever regretted that?
No. I mean, I still play piano, and my mom used to bring me to Knoxville when I was 6, 7, 8 years old. We'd catch Tennessee coach and ride the bus down, ride the bus back, go to a little Crystal, eat a hamburger, and get an orange crush, and it was a big day for me as a little kid.
So back then there was bus service on a regular basis?
Yes, ma'am.
You could ride a bus to Knoxville and
Right.
back in the same day?
And the terminal was right down the middle of town, where the M-A-S-K or T store is now. Yeah.
Okay. Now, you played baseball and basketball at Carson Newman. Do you have you kept up with all that exercise even today?
Not like I should, but yeah, I walk, and if it's a climbing steps or elevator, I try to climb the steps, and I just make it as a habit to do it that way. And the activities, I mean, going to all the basketball games, some football games.
Is that what you go to UT basketball and football games?
Yes. Used to go Indianapolis, Peyton game was go with Mr. Ray Hand, the Eagle Distributing Budweiser person, and they keep up with the basketball.
Now the Peyton you're talking about is
Peyton Manning.
Peyton Manning,
Yeah.
and I know you've also enjoyed watching some basketball. Somebody from Granger County was recently on the Tennessee
A.W.
team.
Davis and Skylar McBee, and when Mears was coach, I'd travel some with the team, and just getting along with everybody, I guess.
Do you have any tips for lawyers today on things we can do to stay healthy and happy? Sounds like you've had a long, good life and stayed in pretty good shape. What would you share with the rest of us on that?
I'd say make every day count, because you don't know whether you're going to be here tomorrow. In regard, and before I came down here today, the lady came in wanted to change her will. I'll give you this illustration.
Okay.
And I'd written the other will for her. She wanted to take out certain people and put others in and what have you. She said, I'll come back and get it. I said, no, you said here, you're going to do this before you leave. You may not get back, because I've had some people that came in and I'd wished I'd have set them down and done it then, and they never got back, passed away, and you have a mess. I think there's some cases that an attorney needs to go ahead and give preference, and one of them is writing a person's will. That's my theory.
I think that's good advice.
Well, that's what I've followed. And it takes the two witnesses, and I'd always sign my name at the bottom, put the other witness at the top, and then by that way I'd always know that I was acquainted with it and wrote that will. That's just a thing of the office. Do you understand me?
I do. That's interesting. That's a good tip, to make every day count. What can you give us a couple of other examples of things that?
You have to. I think that a person that's in your office, he's there to see you.
You mean like a client?
A client. And you say, well, your fee basis is structured, or how you want to do it, and don't compromise your fee basis, because the person that's in your office, he wants you. And I may be across the street, and I may be cheaper than the other person, but if he comes into your office, he wants you, or he wouldn't be in there. That's my theory.
Okay.
And in criminal cases, you got to get paid up front, because he may be back in the pokey and and you won't get nothing.
That's right.
You ever had that to happen?
That's not my area of practice, so I have not. You've been involved in quite a few different things over the years in Granger County. I know you've been active in your political party. What party is that?
It's the Republican Party.
Why is that?
Well, my granddad said he voted for one Democrat for trustee one time, and it like stole the county blind, and he figured he'd just vote Republican. But I don't stick to that theory as such, because I think you got good friends on both sides, good people.
Right.
And of course, I was thinking back when as to what might be asked at this interview, and as to the clubs that you joined, been involved with, President Lions Club, just numerous stuff that has occurred in my life, and I'm sure that the practice of law would be part of that, is cause of that. And I think that when you contribute, say to the Lions Club, the other clubs, or anything that you do, you need to get involved with it. I was elected and went to Nashville Constitutional Convention right out of out of law school. And I think, that situation, the law thing helped. A city recorder, you get involved in your community activities, because those are the people that's going to be on your juries if you try them.
And it sounds like, from what you've been telling us about some of your trials, that knowing your audience, knowing your jurors is important.
I think it's real important, because, and I used to try to get in a personal injury case or something, and in the jury I'd try to get who I thought was going to be the foreman of the grand jury, of the trial jury. And you do that by saying, well, Mr. So-and-so, now, I know you've been a juror before, and you will do what is necessary to try to help the rest of the jury if you're elected. If you're elected as foreman. Well, he'll come back, he'll be the foreman, because those others think that I have appointed him and know what he can do. I've had it to happen, and he'll come right back.
Did things like that ever make your adversary, especially maybe an out-of-town adversary that didn't know all the Granger County folks like you did that ever upset your adversary attorney?
I'm sure it did.
Did you ever hear about it?
Sometimes.
Give us an example or two of that.
Oh, Lord. Well, of course, the judge will ask them, does anybody know Mr. Daniel, or anybody know Miss Dixon, or does anybody know Miss Bernstein, or do they know any of the people involved? And if somebody's wanting to sit on that jury, he just don't say nothing, or she don't. You understand that?
Yes.
And then I don't say that they give me any break as being a local attorney, because the person, your best friend, I wouldn't take my best friend on the jury, because everyone he comes back, everybody's going to say he leaned to Creed Daniel. Okay, you don't want that to happen. My dad used to always say, never take a juror with a bow tie on.
Do you know why he said that?
Well, I don't know, but that's what he would say. And he said engineers and people that are very, very strict on measurements and all this stuff, watch out. I had one case up there, and one of the witnesses, he said he saw the red light there in Rutledge, and it was green for my client. And he said, well, where were you? He said, I was way on back down there. He said, are you sure of what, that you saw it green? He said, yes. He said, how far can you see? He said, I can see the moon. How high is that? And the jury just died of laughing, of course, at that thing, because he stuck with his theory that the light was green.
Have you ever had somebody say that they didn't know you when you knew, a potential juror say they didn't know you when you knew they did?
They won't say they don't know you, but they don't know nothing about the case.
Okay, that's what they'll say. Okay.
A different way to look at it.
Right. Have you had people sitting there that you knew wouldn't be good because they'd maybe been involved in a case where you were on the opposite side?
Well, that's one you won't take off if you think.
Of course.
Take your challenges if you got any left.
Now, you mentioned that you were a delegate to the Constitutional Convention right after you graduated from law school.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. What were the issues before the Constitutional Convention at that time?
It was whether an 18-year-old could vote. It was also the length of term for sheriff, which previously was 2 years, now 4. And they passed the 18 to vote, and there was something else, one other office, and it went from a 2 to a 4 year. And that's the whole thing, that's all it was.
How long did it take to make all those decisions?
We was down there about 2 weeks.
Really?
Everybody wanted to talk because it's from all over the state and what have you. One of my best buddies was the mayor of, elected mayor of Memphis, Wyatt Chandler after that, and he was my buddy, and we'd roomed together with A.V. Kidwell. He was chancellor at Quentin, and everybody wanted to talk.
That must have been a very interesting experience for a newly graduated lawyer.
Yeah, I was probably the youngest, one of the youngest down there.
Have you, in your career, ever tried cases outside of East Tennessee?
Yes.
Where have you been?
Well, McMinn County, Bradley County, and just in federal court, and I had one in Cincinnati, and Tampa, Florida. I was down there a week.
Were those criminal matters?
Personal injury.
Okay.
Down there, and just anywhere. Just you have a degree and license and will travel.
Well, it sounds like you are still very, very busy in your practice. You mentioned when we were taking a break that you have 6 cases to try in General Sessions Court tomorrow.
I do.
What kind of cases are those?
There's 2 or 3 DWIs, possession of drug paraphernalia. That's an assault case, assault and battery.
Now, is it typical for you to have that many cases set on one day?
Yeah, yes. I try to get them all,
Now,
put them together.
Okay. Somebody had told me that you might be thinking about slowing down a little bit. Is that true?
That is true.
Oh, okay.
But it's hard to. It's nearly impossible. If you take a divorce case and you got children, and you've got that case till that youngest one gets 18.
Right.
You know that. And what do? You know what I'm saying?
You practice with your son Dirk now.
With Dirk, yes. And he's constantly in court.
Is he? Have you and he discussed maybe you slowing down or retiring?
No, we don't talk about stuff like that.
Okay.
I just don't go in or what have you.
So you just decide to stay home if you feel like you can?
I don't stay home.
Okay.
I'd like to get on the golf course a little.
Okay.
Or do something.
Tell me about that. I think, started talking a little bit about exercise and probably got distracted on some other topic, but you were saying you like to walk, so you also golf.
Used to a lot golf, yeah. Of course, age will catch you, so you can't hit them out of your shadow now. But I think it's important to walk and keep yourself in shape.
How often do you play golf now?
I haven't played in 2 or 3 months, but I'm going to get back into it.
Good. Well, it's the weather too right now.
That's right. But you can say you're going to play golf, and you can always hang around the lounge area.
That sounds like a plan. Do you have anything in your legal career that you would like to accomplish? Are there things that you still would like to do?
You mean in law?
Right, in law.
I've had about every type of case you could think about, even sheeting tobacco and stuff of this nature, and I'd like to just wind down where I am.
When you say sheeting tobacco?
Sheeting, putting them in a sheet, not tying them up like we used to.
Right.
And USDA was not putting a minimum that they had to bring at that time. And you just throw them in a big sheet and take them, pile it up. And we got that done. An attorney from North Carolina employed me, and he and I, so they had to put a support price, the government did, on it. And then now, you know it, tobacco's about a thing of the past.
Right.
And as you know, tobacco was a big money crop for people, Granger County,
right,
and the other counties. But everything's changed.
How has that had a big effect on the economic climate in Granger County, basically doing away with tobacco farming?
I think it has. I sure do. Of course, you've got 1 or 2 good farms up there now that's raising grapes, selling them to wineries.
Has that replaced tobacco?
Well, it's in there. I don't say it's replaced it, but it's picked up, and a few things like that. And but as you know, there's not a lot of farming going on in Granger County, except dairy farms are still there. Other activities.
Is there anything else that I haven't asked you about that you'd like to talk about?
I think you've about covered the picture.
How would you like to be remembered by you've practiced law all over East Tennessee especially, but in other areas as well, but how would you like to be remembered by the people of Granger County?
That I was trying to be honest with the people. I think lawyers needs to strive to be that. You're not going to satisfy everybody, but you've got to do the best you can do. And when you do that, that's all you can do. I mean, that's my theory. And all the clients that I've had in the past, I look at the closed files, a lot of good people, and that you can be remembered as trying to help the people in your county. And my dad and my grandfather were my grandfather, first person, the Granger County Baptist Association. They're building a building right up in front of the Justice Center now. I want to put stained glass in it in their remembrance. I think we have to give back something to the community, because I think that's what you're going to be remembered by. people that's in the graveyard, who cares about them except their family after 1 or 2 years? Passes away.
Right.
And you know, that's all you got left. Nobody gives. Somebody said that there's an old lady was there at his funeral. Somebody says, "Well, is nobody here old?" He said, "Well, yeah, all her friends done died out. So you're not going to get a high school senior or a grammar school person to come and see somebody that's died 85 years old unless they're related to them. I mean, that's life."
That is. Well, I'd like to end on a positive note. What accomplishment are you most proud of?
I don't know. Grandchildren.
I was going to say you've raised a good family, had a good wife, great wife.
And you know, basically that's what we give away is all we're going to be remembered by, basically. Do you agree with that?
I do, Creed. I have really enjoyed this. I've learned some things about you today, and I've enjoyed this conversation with you very much, and I appreciate you doing this for the Bar Foundation and for future lawyers. I think you've said some things today that will be helpful to both older lawyers and to new people just starting out in the practice, and I really appreciate this, and thank you for doing this, and thank you for the help you've given to me over the years.
And it's always good to see you. You hear me?
Thank you.